The Book of Expanded Deism, Chapters 15 and 16. This is part 8 of a 14-part series. The Book of Expanded Deism can be bought on Amazon.com. The Book of Expanded Deism was written by me, Jayson X, to help people be as sane, good, and happy as possible now and always. To contact me, write to Jayson@Deism. My blog site is jaysonx.com. Chapter 15. Possible Exceptions to the Utilitarian Rule, Part 1. Question 156. What are some possible exceptions to the utilitarian rule? Answer 156. Supposedly, sometimes blindly obeying the utilitarian rule would cause us to do evil. For example, would cause us to 1. Murder an innocent child, doing so would make more creatures happier overall. 2. Work like slaves for the rest of our lives, doing so would make more creatures happier overall. And 3. Let our mother burn to death in a fire if we could save 2 other humans we never met before instead. Simply speaking. I wrote simply speaking because I can imagine at least one exception. Our mother is very evil, and those 2 other humans are very good. If that is the case, we should probably let our mother die. In at least most cases, murdering an innocent child, working like a slave for the rest of our lives, and letting our mother die in a fire just to save 2 strangers' lives are still evil acts. Are evil acts. Furthermore, although it is good to not unnecessarily hurt or kill creatures, sometimes we have to choose to hurt or kill one creature in order to help another creature. For example, suppose that one had a beloved pet dog that was face to face with a rattlesnake, and one's choice was basically to let one's dog get bit or to kill the rattlesnake. One should probably kill the rattlesnake to help one's dog. To help the dog. Question 157. How should one choose the happiness of one creature over another? Answer 157. One should use the value hierarchy. The value hierarchy is largely based on survival of the fittest, and is as follows. At least usually, one should value the first much more than the last. One's child, oneself, one's other close family members, one's close friends, one's other allies, one's nation, other humans, other primates, other mammals, birds and reptiles, amphibians, fish, and other multi-celled animals, single-celled animals, fungi, and plants. Question 158. What is survival of the fittest? Answer 158. Fittest means best adapted to. Thus, survival of the fittest is the process by which those creatures which are best adapted to existing conditions are most likely to survive and successfully reproduced. Reproduction is how creatures pass on their genes from one generation to another. The divine created the universe knowing that very sophisticated species would evolve through survival of the fittest. Question 159. Survival of the fittest seems like a very cruel process because it involves much suffering, hurting, killing, and dying. Do we humans have to participate in this process? Answer 159. Creatures which are not intelligent enough to understand this process must participate in it. However, many, if not most of us humans are intelligent enough to understand survival of the fittest well enough to opt out. For example, we can choose to not reproduce. Either choosing to participate or choosing to not participate can be a virtuous choice, as long as the choice is made to make the most creatures, especially humans, the happiest. Question 160. If a human can be virtuous and choose to not participate in survival of the fittest, why should we use survival of the fittest to help us determine the value hierarchy? Answer 160. simply speaking, the divine, who is much more virtuous, wise, intelligent, and knowledgeable than us, created and values this process greatly. The divine forces all creatures to participate in this process, and succeeding in this process is the major goal of all irrational creatures in the universe. It is also a major goal of many, if not most, rational creatures in the universe. Of course, the most important goal of rational creatures is to be as sane, good, and happy as possible, now and always. Question 161. Does the value hierarchy mean that one should always choose to help oneself rather than one's other close family members and one's close friends? That sounds selfish. Answer 161. No, that would be selfish. Doing good often means choosing the best balance of actions. Sometimes one should choose to help oneself rather than one's other close family members and one's close friends. But other times one should choose to help one's other close family members and one's close friends rather than oneself. The perfect golden rule, the fair share rule, and the loyalty rule, which are found and explained in chapters 16 and 17, help one achieve the best balance. Question 162. Why does one's child come first? Answer 162. One's child comes first for at least two reasons. 1. An obvious, divine given goal of this life is to perpetuate one's genes to the next generation, who will, hopefully, in turn pass them on to another generation. 2. A child does not ask to be conceived by a parent. Usually, a parent chooses to conceive a child. A child is also very dependent on adults, especially his or her parent, or parent-like figure, for survival and guidance. Therefore, a parent has an enormous obligation to help her or his child. Question 163. Why does oneself come second? Answer 163. Oneself comes second for at least three reasons. 1. Simply speaking, an obvious divine given goal of this life is to survive for as long as one can. In terms of survival of the fittest, though, it is more important that one's child survives than that one survives, because the goal of survival of the fittest is to successfully pass on one's genes. 2. In survival of the fittest, it is better to pass on one's genes than the genes of one's family members, because one is supposed to replicate oneself as much as possible. One's genes are more like oneself than the genes of one's family members. 3. One is more likely to maximize one's pleasure and minimize one's suffering than anyone else. In other words, if you do not take good care of yourself, why should anyone else? In general, you should take care of yourself and let others take care of themselves without interfering in each other's lives. Question 164. Why do other close family members come third? Answer 164. There are at least three reasons. 1. One's close family members have very similar genes as oneself, so helping one's close family members helps pass on almost the same genes as oneself, which is one of the divine given goals of this life. 2. At least some of one's close family members have probably loved one much and sacrificed much to help one. If so, one owes those family members much love and sacrifice. 3. Helping and loving one's family encourages them to help and love one in return. Question 165. Why do one's close friends come fourth? Answer 165. There are at least two reasons. 1. At least some of one's close friends have probably loved one much and sacrificed much to help one. If so, one owes those close friends much love and sacrifice. 2. Helping one's close friends encourages them to help and love one in return. Chapter 16. Possible exceptions to the utilitarian rule, Part 2. Question 166. Why do one's other allies come fifth? Answer 166. One's allies are humans whom one has formed an alliance with. An alliance is a relationship created to achieve a mutual goal or goals. For example, in war, alliances often form to defeat a common enemy. There are at least two reasons one's other allies come fifth. 1. One's other allies are generally less dedicated to one's well-being than one's close friends, but more dedicated to one's well-being than one's nation. 2. Alliances are maintained by loyalty and trust. Therefore, one should be willing to do much to prove one's loyalty and trust to one's allies. Question 167. Why does one's nation come sixth? Answer 167. One's nation is at least one of two things. 1. Those who share one's customs and language, and or 2. Those who are governed by one's government. A reason that one's nation comes sixth is that one does not necessarily have an alliance with one's nation, but one's nation is more likely to protect one than another nation. Question 168. Am I advocating racism or nationalism? A. 168. That's answer 168. No, racism is the belief that certain races are inherently superior to others and discriminatory behavior based on this belief. Nationalism is excessive pride in and devotion to one's own nation and its interests. As far as I know, no race of humans is superior to another intellectually or morally, and every nation is a mixture of good and evil. All nations have something to boast about and something to be ashamed of. Question 169. Why do other humans come seventh? Answer 169. One's nation is more likely to protect one than any other nation, but every human has a duty to promote humanity for at least one reason. One of the divine given goals of this life is to try and ensure the survival of one species because one species has very similar genes as oneself. Question 170. Why are there primates, other mammals, birds and reptiles, amphibians, fish, other multicelled animals, single-celled animals, fungi, and plants ranked as they are? Answer 170. There is at least one reason. Humans should value their species, which means that they should usually value other species based on how close to being human they are. When we value other species based on how close to being human they are, we are saying to ourselves that humanity is the most important species to us. This attitude generally helps humanity to survive and thrive. Current known evidence and scientific thinking support the ranking of non-human species in the value hierarchy. Question 171. How does one know when there is a possible exception to the utilitarian rule, and what rule should one follow in its place? Answer 171. One knows when there is a possible exception to the utilitarian rule when the utilitarian rule seems to greatly violate the perfect golden rule, the fair share rule, and or the loyalty rule. In such a case, one should probably choose to obey the perfect golden rule, the fair share rule, and or the loyalty rule rather than the utilitarian rule. I wrote probably because for almost every rule there is an exception, and because, as answer 189 explains, there is a chance that there are technically no exceptions to the utilitarian rule. Question 172. How does one know which rule to follow? Answer 172. One uses one's moral sense. One's moral sense is what seems true to one in regards to morality. We should always try to make informed moral choices so we make good ones. Also, when we make moral choices, we should try to be humble because we might make evil moral choices. Many humans throughout history have done very evil actions, convinced that they were doing very good actions. Question 173. Why does humility help when making moral choices? Answer 173. It keeps us honest, caring, and open to different possibilities. Honesty, caring, and openness help us make good moral choices in general, and when we do wrong, they help us to admit our mistake, make amends, and do better in the future. Question 174. What is the perfect golden rule? Answer 174. The perfect golden rule is this. Imagine or realize that you are very sane, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, and very kind. As you do this, treat other creatures the way that you want to be treated. Question 175. Why is this rule called the perfect golden rule? Answer 175. It is called the perfect golden rule because it is an improved version of the golden rule, which is treat others the way you want to be treated. What that means is do to others what you want them to do to you, and do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. Question 176. Why was the golden rule improved into the perfect golden rule? Answer 176. The word creatures was added because others by itself is too vague and we should generally try to do what is best for all creatures. The words very sane, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, and very kind were added to promote good results. If someone is very sane, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, and very kind, he or she generally knows and wants what is best for him or herself and other creatures. Therefore, it is almost certainly good if she or he treats others the way he or she wants to be treated. However, if someone is very insane, very unintelligent, very ignorant, and or very cruel, she or he might not know and or want to do what is best for him or herself and other creatures. Such a person is likely to do evil when obeying the golden rule. For example, masochists enjoy feeling pain and I do not. So I do not want masochists to hurt me because they are treating me the way that they want to be treated. Question 177. Should a creature's desires be considered when one follows the golden rule or the perfect golden rule? Answer 177. Yes. We want our desires to be considered when others choose, or choose not to, do things to us. Therefore, we should consider the desires of others when we choose, or choose not to, do things to others. Question 178. How does the perfect golden rule correct some possible flaws of the utilitarian rule? Answer 178. It helps us avoid being unjust to other creatures. For example, the perfect golden rule helps us realize that it is unjust to murder an innocent child, even if doing so would make more creatures happier overall. We would not want to be murdered if we were innocent children, so we should not murder an innocent child.